Today, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that doctors can kill their patients through assisted suicide. Now, assisted suicide is a bit of a euphemism, of course, because the doctors aren't killing themselves, they're killing their patient. So it's homicide. But the Supreme Court is a political animal and knows a bit about spin. For literally thousands of years, doctors have operated by the principle, do no harm. You may have heard of the Hippocratic Oath, written by a Greek scholar, Hippocrates, regarded as the father of medicine in the Western culture. I mean, for more than 2,500 years, doctors have taken the Hippocratic Oath. They've used his symbol. The oath is long, but I'll read the words that count. Doctors swear this to God, and they say to Apollo, and promise to govern themselves by this oath. Here is how they swear they will treat patients, and I quote, "I will take care that they suffer no hurt or damage, nor shall any man's entreaty prevail upon me to administer poison to anyone, neither will I counsel any man to do so." Yeah, they're doctors, they're not killers. There are palliative care doctors, doctors who ease pain in the final months or weeks of someone's life when there is no hope, when the goal of doctors is no longer to save someone but to alleviate suffering. But the Supreme Court, along with radical activists, has decided that is not enough. The law must now be amended to permit doctors to kill patients. And so the decision has been made, a decision to change thousands of years of morality and medicine and law with a vote. Oh, yes, all of these decisions will be made by a vote. You just don't get to vote in that vote. 9 Supreme Court judges voted, not 308 elected MPs, not 35 million Canadians, not even Canada's doctors. This enormous moral, legal, political, medical change has been made by 9 people, and you will now obey it. Because when it comes to judge-made law, you are not a citizen, you are a subject. By the way, the Supreme Court heard a case of euthanasia before. In 1993, the case of Sue Rodriguez. She wanted a doctor to kill her. The Supreme Court ruled against it. But these judges today didn't like that ruling. See, you and I are expected to abide by court rulings. The same thing with the Supreme Court, actually, but judges and lawyers and activists, judges are lawyers and activists, so they said there were new ideas that the 1993 court didn't think about, new evidence. By evidence, they mean new political opinions, largely. The Supreme said that other countries have changed their laws on euthanasia, and they actually said that was a factor on determining what our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms means. Did you know that? Did you know that what other countries do to their disabled people changes what our laws here mean? Oh, but they are deferential to our Parliament. Oh, for sure. You know, the court today said it was Parliament's place to set social policy, and so they gave Parliament 12 months to come up with a new law before today's ruling takes effect. But they just ruled that doctors killing patients is no longer illegal. So Parliament can pass any law it likes as long as it does what they say, sort of like Henry Ford saying you can have any color car you like as long as it's black. So we all know who's boss. What are you going to try and stop the court, these 9 Supreme Court judges? Seriously, can you even name them? How many judges on our Supreme Court can name? They all have power. They each have power that rivals Stephen Harper or Justin Trudeau or Thomas Mulcair. But without debate, without amendment, without public consultations, without public accountability, without winning an election, they just wrote a new law from the courts. That's not a judge's job, but like I say, who's going to stop them? The same acrobatics, the same pretzel logic that the courts use today to give themselves a do-over of the Rodriguez case. Oh, you see, the world has changed so much in the past 20 years. Those judges in 1993, they didn't know anything. And we know that 2,500 years of the Hippocratic Oath, they didn't know anything about morality either. That same pretzel logic actually relied, get this, on Section 7 of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. What is Section 7? You will laugh and cry when I read it to you. It's this: everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of the person, and the right not to be deprived thereof, except in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice. So the right to life, the right not to have your life taken away by the government. The Supreme Court, 9 unknown, unelected, unaccountable political activists actually used our charter right to life to invent a right to death. No, not a right to death. We all have the right to die. We all will die. Let's not use euphemisms, please. They took the Constitution's protection of a right to life and they invented in it the power to kill. Sorry, this is not suicide. The doctors here aren't killing themselves. They're killing their patients, the old, the weak, the sick, the people doctors are actually supposed to help. This is the culture of death, a culture the Supreme Court has embraced. To hell with the last Supreme Court ruling on the subject. To hell with the fact that Parliament has not changed the law. Again, what are you going to do about it? Going to throw these judges out at the next election? When's that campaign? It's grotesque to see various left-wing civil liberties groups cheering at this. There were plenty of civil liberties lawyers in court fighting for the counterfeit human right to be killed. Seriously, tell me the last time the Canadian Civil Liberties Association actually fought for a real right, like freedom of speech. They love their counterfeit rights, like the right to have a doctor kill you. They love the culture of death. They love going for those public heroin shooting galleries. That's what the charter means to the left these days. There were other interveners in court, some Christian groups who opposed suicide or doctors killing their patients on moral and religious grounds. The very preamble of our Charter of Rights reads, whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. I think we can all admit that the judges don't give that God bit any credence, just like they invented the counterfeit right to kill in the written right to life. They will surely one day find that the supremacy of God is illegal and cite the Charter as their excuse. They're politicians, these judges, without the burden of having any democratic legitimacy or accountability, sort of like senators, but without a skeptical press gallery and with real power, and there's only 9 of them. There is a moral objection, there is a religious objection to what they've done, but there are obvious practical objections too, even if you're not religious, not Christian at all. Do you doubt that the scope of doctor-killed patients will expand? Really? Do you doubt we're on a slippery slope? The opposite, it's a wedge, it's a move back to eugenics. So now an adult in pain may make this decision, says the court. Here's the exact wording from today's ruling. We conclude that the prohibition on physician-assisted dying is void insofar as it deprives a competent adult of such assistance where 1, the person affected clearly consents to the termination of life, and 2, the person has a grievous and irremediable medical condition, including an illness, disease, or disability that causes enduring suffering that is intolerable to the individual in the circumstances of his or her condition. So it has to be a competent adult who consents to be killed and who has disease or disability that causes enduring suffering that they don't tolerate. Say, do you think that includes, I don't know, depression? A lot of senior citizens get depressed. A spouse dies, they're lonely, kids move out, don't keep in touch. A dozen minor illnesses creep into everyday life. Things get sad and lonely, they're not working anymore, they're bored. Antidepressant meds might help, just some friends and some company would help. Visits from family would help, but we're all too busy these days, aren't we? So it's an intolerable depression. Kill me, doctor. Oh, and how about add to that a bunch of kids and grandkids eager to inherit the old man's fortune? Grandpa's 80 now, and he's sitting on $1 million worth of real estate. Look, he's not really that happy since Grandma passed away. Doctor, if we all go to work on him, maybe we can convince him to end things now so we don't have to wait for our inheritance for 10 years. Oh, and doctor, think of all the savings to our hospital. You'd be doing him a favor and our healthcare budget a favor. Listen, we'll all pressure him, and as soon as he signs the form, stick a needle in him, okay? Oh, is that unthinkable? Really? But why are we limiting it to aging people who are suffering? What about someone who is disabled from birth? What about the mentally retarded? There are plenty of left-wing philosophers who right now say that Down syndrome babies are subhuman and should be put to death. Not even aborted. They're born. They should be killed. They should have their suicide assisted. Peter Singer, a professor at Princeton University, no less, says that parents should have the legal right to murder their own children if they're mentally disabled. That's the thinking now. I mean, look, the kid's such a drag. Financially, such a hassle. Oh, and doctor, look at how he suffers. Look, just give him an injection, doctor. Think of your limited healthcare budget that it would free up. I'm not going to come up with hypothetical situations all day. They're not even hypothetical anymore in other countries that the court relies on. In Belgium, children can be euthanized up to age 9 if their parents consent. And really, What's the reason to distinguish a competent adult of 18 from a child of 9 whose parents agree? I mean, once you agree that life isn't necessarily good and killing them isn't necessarily bad, then we're just quibbling about details, aren't we? I mean, maybe a Supreme Court of activist judges in 10 years will declare this Supreme Court to be as unhip and square as they just declared the 1993 Supreme Court. And again, what are you going to do? Vote them out? I mean, if you can kill an unborn child for any reason or no reason up till the moment of death, what's wrong with aborting a baby because it's a girl? If we discover a gay gene, do you doubt that we will abort gay babies because they're gay? What is the difference? Now, on this show, I use the word media party a lot. Of course, the media party is almost completely in support of euthanasia. It's part of their worldview. But there is another club or clique. Professor Ted Morton invented the phrase the court party. The court party. Lawyers, law professors, judges. The media party has influence, but the court party has power. They just changed 2,500 years of morality and law without asking the rest of us. Maybe that's why the court party, the law societies of Ontario, Nova Scotia, and BC in particular, want to keep out Christian law students from Trinity Western University, because Christians are dissidents these days. They're not down with the euthanasia program. Maybe that's why, as we showed you earlier this week, the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario has proposed a new policy to override Christian doctors from following their own consciences. Here, in the light of this new right to kill your patient and the right of a patient to demand to be killed, read this proposal that Ontario's medical profession is proposing this month. Let me read it to you. It's called Ensuring Access to Care. I like that euphemism. Physicians must provide information about all clinical options that may be available or appropriate to meet patients' clinical needs or concerns. Physicians must not withhold information about the existence of a procedure or treatment because the procedure conflicts with their religious or moral beliefs. And get this, where physicians are unwilling to provide certain elements of care due to their moral or religious beliefs, an effective referral to another healthcare provider must be provided to the patient. An effective referral means a referral made in good faith to a non-objecting, available, and accessible physician or other healthcare provider. The referral must be made in a timely manner to reduce the risk of adverse clinical outcomes. Physicians must not impede access to care for existing patients or those seeking to become patients. It's a lot of words, but let me translate it simply. If a patient comes to a doctor and demands the doctor kill them, that doctor cannot deny them that right. If that doctor himself won't kill the patient, that doctor must quickly pass them on to a doctor who will kill them. You must do this, or your right to be a doctor in Ontario will be removed. You'll be banned. How do you feel about doctors getting into the killing business? Sorry, I'm not using the word suicide because they're not killing themselves. That's just spin. How do you feel about the only standard being suffering? Don't we all suffer? Isn't suffering part of life? Is a life with suffering not worth living, not worth saving? Do you really doubt that this court case will be used to push people into dying who don't want to die or who are on the edge but now will be pushed into it for improper reasons? Do you really doubt that grasping heirs will try to push rich relatives into this to get their fortune? Really, you doubt that, eh? Do you really doubt that our broke hospitals and healthcare systems won't do this to free up budgets, just to push people over? Do you really doubt that this will stop here? Because it's not the details, it's the principle. Today, 9 unelected politicians did what 308 MPs have never chosen to do. They've changed what we stand for in Canada. We're not about life and protecting it. We're about death, too.